News Now is brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, Docomo Pacific, island-wide, worldwide, the choice is clear. From the Pacific News Center in Hagåtña, Guam, here's Clint Ridgell and Janella Carrera with Betsy Brown and Roselle Romanes. PNC Sports with Blake Watson. And weather with Joanna O. With your news now.
Hafa, good evening and Happy New Year. You're watching PNC's News Now. I'm Janella Carrera.
And I'm Clint Ridgell. Thanks for tuning in. Topping your news tonight, Governor Eddie Calvo is defending his administration's decision to convert the old barracks in Tidzin into Tidzin High. His comments are a reaction to an audit that shows that Tidzin High costs more than JFK. The governor says this is false and is based on a draft audit.
I do believe that that it was a very, very good move. We do believe that it was less expensive than JFK for sure, and we also believe, and most importantly, was with the best interest of the students of Guam.
Governor Eddie Calvo is referring to the decision to create the Tidzin High School out of the old military barracks in Tidzin that are owned by Cortec. The governor is reacting to reports based on an audit that shows that Tidzin High is more expensive than the brand new JFK High School. The governor says this audit is a draft audit, and he says it doesn't take into account comments from other GovGuam agencies like GIDA. GIDA helped facilitate the deal that allowed GovGuam to essentially borrow money to pay for the conversion of old barracks into a high school campus. However, the governor says it's more than just a high school campus.
When you take a look at the Tidzin property, it's not just a school. There's also Department of Administration headquarters. Central office has been moved up there. There's also warehousing. There was also land acquisition.
The governor says that if you take all of this into account, the actual cost of Tidzin High is much less expensive than it would appear when based strictly on a cost per pupil formula. Governor Calvo says that he's certain that when the final findings of the audit are released, it will show that the decision to create Tidzin High was a good one.
In fact, just today, the Office of Public Accountability released their final audit of the Tidzin Campus Tax Credits Program. The audit gave two cost comparisons for the Tidzin purchase. One is the cost of just the Tidzin High School campus, which came out to a total of $134 million, or $847.84 per square foot, which is more than JFK's cost of $751.62 per square foot. The second comparison uses the cost of the entire Tidzin complex, which includes the cost of land buildings insurance, maintenance, and collateral equipment for both the Tidzin High campus and GDOE central offices. Although this made for a lower cost per square foot, it still came out to $766.95 per square foot, which is still cheaper than JFK's $751.62 per square foot. The audit concludes that while tax credits and lease obligations have become a way to finance things without affecting GovGuam's debt ceiling, this amended Tidzin campus purchase agreement will affect the debt ceiling as it shifted the annual cost from tax credits to annual legislative appropriations. According to the audit, as of fiscal year 2013, GovGuam's total debt was at $1.6 billion, and the Tidzin debt will add to this.
A Guam guardsman has pleaded guilty for making fraudulent housing cost claims for federal housing allowance. According to filings in the District Court of Guam, Matthew F. Untalan stole over $36,000 in federal housing allowances for faking a lease agreement with his sister. Untalan pleaded guilty to falsely claiming that he was paying $2,400 a month in rent to his sister for a residence in Mongmong. Untalan did this over a period of a few years from September 1st of 2009 to March 31st of 2012. He faces a maximum of 5 years in prison. His sentencing hearing is set for December the 22nd.
Local attorney Gary Gumatautau is suing United Airlines, check this out, over a cat that pooped all over an airplane mid-flight. As funny as it may sound, attorney Gumatautau says it made him absolutely sick. It happened in January of 2013 on a United flight from St. Louis to Houston. Attorney Gary Gumatautau, in a lawsuit filed in Superior Court, says he was seated next to a woman who had a large cat inside of a carrier under a seat. After the plane took off, Gumatautai says the woman took her cat out of the bag and began to feed it. But instead of instructing the woman to return the cat to its carrier, a passing flight attendant verbally acknowledged the presence of the cat outside of the bag. And this is where it starts to get ugly. The cat began to whine, the lawsuit says, resist the owner's efforts to control it, and the cat defecated while twisting wildly in the arms of the passenger. Feces was flying about in the cabin. To make matters worse, Gumatautai says the cat's poop landed on him. Quote, the cat feces with absolutely noxious odor was distributed around the adjoining seat area, in the aisle, and on himself. Gumatautai says he became violently ill, vomiting throughout the rest of the hour-long flight. He says he tried to switch seats, but the plane was full, and efforts by flight attendants to clean up the cat's feces did little to help. United Airlines should not have permitted the offensive cat into the plane's passenger compartment, he says, or permitted the cat to be removed from its carrier bag, adding that the airline, quote, could have reasonably foreseen that a cat might, could, or would defecate, and that it would pose a hazardous or biohazard risk to its passengers. Attorney Gumatautai was suing for $20,000, but he tells us that he and United have already settled the case, but he could not tell us the terms of the settlement.
Students, jurors, and employees of the Department of Public Works will have to undergo TB screening after a bus driver diagnosed with the disease passed away recently. DPW Director Carl Dominguez says the bus driver suddenly fell ill earlier this month and was hospitalized. The patient drove bus number 72. Students on that bus route who attended Daniel L. Perez, UPI, and Machinao elementary schools, as well as FBLG Middle School and Simon Sanchez High School, have been identified as contacts, as have persons who served with the individual on jury duty or worked alongside them at DPW. Public Health will be providing free PPD skin tests to those individuals identified as contacts. The testing won't be provided in DOE schools until January the 20th, even though classes resume on the 5th. Deputy Superintendent Rob Millay explains that teachers will be watching for symptoms until then.
And in the interim, between the time they return in January 20th, what we'll do is we'll provide guidance to the schools so that the teachers can assist in looking for signs and symptoms, and if they see something, and even if they're not sure if it's a sign or a symptom, refer the student to the school nurse for further evaluation, and it's always better to err on the side of caution.
Public Health will be offering the skin test beginning on January the 5th. Any students who don't want to wait until the January 20th screening can contact Public Health to have their skin test done earlier.
And 2014 was a good year for the Department of Education with the opening of a new school, its first clean audit in a decade, and another above satisfactory rating for Superintendent John Fernandez. PNC's Betsy Brown has more on the Guam Education Board's evaluation and Fernandez's plans to move the department forward in the new year.
If the Superintendent of Education were given a report card, it would have an A at the top. The Guam Education Board last night gave John Fernandez an above satisfactory rating. Committee Chair Mary Gutierrez says the evaluation rates the superintendent on the duties and responsibilities outlined in his contract.
The board unanimously approved this evaluation during our regular board meeting last night.
Fernandez credits the positive review to the dedication of his staff.
I think the evaluation itself is not just a reflection of performance as an individual, but I think really more reflective of the performance as a department and an acknowledgement of the hard work that all of our employees are doing.
But there's still plenty of things to improve upon, and in 2015, Fernandez says he wants to move beyond the problems of the past so that DOE can truly focus on education.
I hope to see tremendous progress going forward with regard to getting us off of high risk. And that means that we may not get it all at once, but certainly by the next summer, I plan to ask the U.S. Department of Education to come in and explore areas that we think are ready to go.
In addition to the goal of achieving financial independence, Fernandez says the department is also moving to improve its facilities, with a $100 million RFP about to go out to rehabilitate Simon Sanchez and other schools. Still, Fernandez says student achievement will remain his top priority.
When kids graduate from our school system, we're looking at 80% proficiency by year 2020 in English, language arts, math, science, and social studies. A lot of work.
That goal will be guided by the transition to the ACT Aspire and other assessments throughout the school year. To see Fernandez's evaluation, visit our website, pacificnewscenter.com. Betsy Brown, PNC News.
All right, let's check in with PNC's Rosel Romanes, who tells us what's ahead in the last show of the year.
Happy New Year's Eve, Guam! Do you have a New Year's resolution? We went around the island and asked residents that question. Find out what they said when News Now returns.